Standing up in McKinney, this is According to Callus, coming to you on the 28th of April, the year of our Lord 2025. It is episode 738. We're going to talk about the election. Before we do that, let me take a moment and remind you, I need you to follow, share, subscribe, join me on the social media of your choice. You can find me on pretty much any podcatcher out there, from Amazon to Google to Apple, Spotify, Podbean, whatever. I'm there. Tune in. On the social medias, I have a page, a group on Facebook. I'm a pro at Gab. I drop in at MeWe. You can still catch most of my shows over at YouTube. And occasionally I pop in at X, and I'm trying to figure out if Rumble's worth my time. That being said, it's clear to me that the time that I've invested in this program needs to be cut back. I can't do it full time anymore. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with my long-term goals. It's been a joy to do it full time when I was able. That being said, for the time being, I'm looking at scaling back to probably a once a week show. I think that's about all I'm going to be able to swing. Probably be close to an hour each time, just because I've got that much material. I do that because priorities matter. I do that because I have responsibilities, and this has been fun. But I make no money. It's an investment in the future, yes, but I have bills to pay. I have a family to take care of. I have other responsibilities. Not that I'm needing your permission, but I am trying to justify my decision. I guess I'll put it that way. That being said, your help to grow the show, your help to continue to share the show does make a huge difference. It just does. Because doing this doesn't do any good if it doesn't change any minds, if it doesn't open any doors, if it doesn't cause anybody to reconsider something that they thought that they already knew. All right, so here we go. On with the program. The McKinney Municipal Election Special. Now, I know I've touched on some of these subjects in the past. I know I've talked about some of the candidates in the past. As a matter of fact, later on, if not tonight, probably tomorrow morning, I will be cobbling together the interview. I did like a 5-question interview with Mr. Brian Magnuson. And I will present that to you unedited, if you will. I had already recorded this episode. I had it planned out in my mind, how I wanted to do it. I was about 30 minutes in, and I kind of chopped it off. I wanted to be done. And I think I did a disservice to the couple of candidates at the tail end, and I certainly left a lot of things unfinished. So what I'm going to try and do is end this intro now and focus on the election. And I'm going to do this in 2 parts. One, I'm going to tell you who I who I endorse or endorse or recommend. There we go. Endorse or recommend. And then I'm going to tell you about some of the other candidates that I would say are not the end of the world. I don't know how else to phrase it. And I think that's one of the things that is a problem. And once I'm done with that, then I'm going to go into some explanation. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to give some of the background and some of the issues and problems with what's been going on and why that matters. So first things first. Okay. You have the city of McKinney, which is serviced by 6 school districts, but 2 of them I am familiar with because I have a direct relationship, if you will, with them. The first one is Frisco ISD. Both of my daughters graduated from Frisco ISD, and I had a vested interest in where Frisco ISD was going. That being said, I will endorse Stephanie Elad. I think she's been great the 4 years she's been there. I wish her co-conspirator would have stuck around for another term, but I understand. He kind of got to the end. There are two other endorsed candidates that the Republican Party of Collin County endorsed, so I'll recommend them. I don't know anything about them. I've not had any interactions with them, but I will tell you that the Collin County Republican Party has done a much better job this go-round in their endorsement game. Not perfect, not by any stretch of the imagination, but they're getting better. And I feel confident that Frisco's not going to be really a close call, right? These are the Republican endorsed candidates, and the other ones aren't Republicans. And as a vice chair of the Republican Party of Collin County, I kind of got to play the party game here. It's not to say there couldn't be a non-Republican that is a good candidate or somebody I wouldn't lose sleep over, and we're going to get to that later. Okay. Frisco City Council. I don't really know any of these folks. I have met Bert Thacker. I do know Jared Elad. I know they're both running to be on the city council. I know that they're both in tough races. But I would recommend that if you haven't voted yet, that you consider them, that you investigate them. And if their values align with your values, they are viable candidates and you should support them. Absolutely. It's easy as that. I don't live in Frisco. I don't feel comfortable endorsing for Frisco City Council candidates just because I don't know enough to do that. If you really want to know what's going on in Frisco, the city of Frisco, you should call up Patrick Wamoff. Go look him up. Once you get past his unique style, he will give you lots of good information and legitimate reasons why you should support various candidates out in Frisco, whether it's Collin County or Denton County. And he's my go-to guy when I have questions, and I'm not ashamed to say it. All right. McKinney ISD. Oh, my God. I get heartburn thinking about this sometimes. We had an opportunity to replace between 1 and 3 of the tired old guard that was in the school board 2 years ago. And we muffed that up bad. And when I say we, I mean both the Republican Party of Collin County and the candidates. This go around, there really aren't any quote-unquote Republican candidates that are running. I know there was one that's running against the former school board member, and we'll visit that in just a second. The other race is Chad Green. Now, Chad Green is my friend personally. I know the man. I trust the man. He stepped on it once or twice in the 4 years he was in office. He's paid a heavy price. He's been abused. He's been attacked. The only thing I think that hasn't happened to him is being swatted, but I shouldn't say that out loud. Somebody might get some ideas. But the man has been through the ringer because he asks questions, because he didn't go along with the intelligentsia that thought they knew what was best. He's been calling out the problems for over 4 years. He hit it on the nose when he said the consequences of the shutdown was going to hurt the students. He said that we were probably in a C-rated school district at this point, and guess what? The state agreed. So you can go vote for the other guy, and the other guy is just that, just another guy. He isn't going to do anything. He's not going to change anything. He's not going to advocate for anything. He's just going to go along to get along, and you're not going to have any questions. You're not going to have any dissent. The school board will go back to sleep and do nothing. You'll get the status quo. So you can vote for that other guy, or you can go vote for Chad Green. Yeah, I know. The guy's had a tough go of it. He hasn't had much time to campaign. He's got his signs up. He's doing his level best to just keep afloat in this election season. But he has fought the good fight. He has done what he thought was best in each and every time. And if you can't give the guy a little grace for getting some bad intel or bad information once or twice, sorry. I mean, you folks have forgiven and forgotten all the crazy things that went on in 2020 and 2019 courtesy of that school board. You're willing to overlook all those things, but no, you can't give Chad Green any grace. I'm telling you, McKinney, it's going to still be a 6-1 vote on most everything. So if that bothers you, if that scares you, then take the advice of the current mayor and run him off. But if you would like at least one person to champion the children, one person to be concerned about your pocketbook, one person to question the status quo, one person to say, yeah, that's all right, but the superintendent actually works for us, then Chad Green's your man. That's the only choice you've got. Now, there is another race with a contestant, or contestants, I should say. Kenneth Ussery has decided to come back. For whatever reason, he took 4 years off, and we got Philip Hassler. Maybe Philip Hassler was there for one term. It doesn't really matter. They're interchangeable. I mean, his own billboard says, tag, you're it, or something to that equivalent. I mean, I'm sorry, but one guy that's just going to carry the water for the Teachers Association to another guy that's going to carry water for the Teachers Association, big deal. Oh, if you think that's unfair, okay, fine. One guy that's going to carry water for the administration to another guy that's going to carry water for the administration. Does that make you feel better? Now, look, nobody thinks the teachers are the problem. There are some teachers that are problematic, but teachers as a whole, nobody thinks they're the problem. Nobody thinks the staff at the school district in the schools is the problem. The administration has lots of issues that they're not addressing, that they have to be open and honest about, but nobody wants to call them on that. The entire school board might as well not even exist at this point. But so you have one choice. That's Chad Green. The other option, or the other race, is the guy that's come back who was previously on the school board. So we got a retread. Now he's running against a person that I don't know, that I can't advise one way or the other on. I know the Republican Party of Collin County has endorsed. So maybe I recommend you vote for Klosky, but I don't know enough about her that I would endorse. So I'll just say, go ahead. I'm going to take the recommendation of the Collin County Republican Party and say, that's your recommendation. If you want somebody that's going to ask questions, if you want somebody that's going to be outside of the status quo, to go along to get along. And I know, look, these are quote-unquote nonpartisan races, right? The R and the D aren't supposed to matter, but we all know they do. It's the policies that matter. It's the actions that matter. It's the worldview that matters. When they say they're for every kid, that's not what they mean. They don't care about any of the kids except the ones that, quite frankly, have parents to wear them out. They don't. Your kid has to sacrifice so somebody else can feel better about themselves. I'm sorry, but that's not how every kid is helped. It's just not. Now, I don't want to get into all the details because, quite frankly, you don't care. It's been clear. Nobody really cares. You have one clear choice and one mildly clear choice in the McKinney ISD races. All right. Moving on. We're already 15 minutes in almost here. McKinney City Council. You've got an outgoing mayor who has been instrumental in picking his replacement. His replacement is also a former member of the city council. The last time he was on city council, he took part in actions that got the city sued. Now, whether or not he's guilty of anything legally, don't know, don't care. They swept that under the rug. He spent some time in the naughty booth. The majority of it, coincidentally enough, he was on zoning and planning in that committee. No power there. No, not at all. But again, no vision, no leadership. I mean, it's bad enough that the current mayor has to basically be campaigning for him because there's no there. So I don't hate the guy. I think he's competent. I no doubt in my mind that he and his family have put a lot of service in that the city of McKinney has benefited from. So you got to be fair, right? But more of the same isn't going to get us anywhere. On the other side of the spectrum, and to be clear, I think the city of McKinney survives if he's elected. So it's not like this is, a do or die situation here. I don't want to paint it any other way. Just if you're very happy with the way things have been, then that's the guy that's going to continue how the things have been. You're not going to change anything. You're not going to improve anything. Some have said he's a puppet. I don't know that that's fair, but draw your own conclusions. The opposite side of that spectrum is none other than Dr. Matt. Now, I got to be honest. I know Dr. Rostami. I think he's a heck of a nice guy. He's probably one of the smartest people in the room, in any room he's in. That being said, I'm not sure that I'm enthusiastic about the prospect of him being the mayor. But I think McKinney survives that because I think no matter who the city council is, they will work with the guy and they'll figure something out, perhaps tone it down a bit. But I got to admire the guy that's been in 3 races in about 5 years and just boundless energy. I mean, I'm sorry. I just got a major respect for the guy. I'm not going to vote for him, but I got to be honest, a little part of me wishes that we would have that. But be that as it may. Taylor Willingham, another guy, I don't know him, can't endorse, not going to recommend, but I suspect he's a whole lot smarter than you think he is too. All right, that leaves me with the only choice that I have for the city of McKinney mayor, Scott Sanford. Now, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. The very thing that I criticized him for, or complained about, if you will, when he was a Texas state rep, is actually his biggest asset as a mayor. He's slow to act. He listens well. He considers all the options. He's even-handed. Quite frankly, he's a little laid back in some ways. He's very methodical. The guy, he's an accountant. He is not an exciting speaker either, to be honest, not at times. But he knows what he wants. He has a vision. He can articulate it in such a way that you come away with saying, okay, yeah, I understand. He's a heck of a smart guy and a nice guy. I trust him. And that's really the major thing here, right? Who do you trust? Well, I trust Scott Sanford. I think that the city of McKinney does need a little bit different direction. The city of McKinney does need a new vision. And we're not getting that unless we happen to elect the guy. Now, does the city of McKinney come to a screeching halt if somebody else wins? No. But that's your best option, in my opinion. And here's the other thing. Most of these folks that are running, they're not our enemy. They just have a different vision or no vision. They're just going to go along with what's currently there than we do. And we work alongside these people. We see these people. We need to have a little respect, a little courtesy for the fact that they're willing to do something else and they're serving. So I hesitate to bash them. I hesitate to talk smack. I don't think that's appropriate or helpful. But again, that's just where we're at. All right, now I put District 3 aside separately. I think this is worthy of consideration because it's going to tie into the very next thing I'm going to talk about. In some ways, this race is extremely clear-cut. In other ways, it's a little more complicated. But at the end of the day, if you're a voter and you care about parties, it should be a very simple decision for you. Okay. Dre Feltus, Dr. Dre Feltus, is the incumbent city council member. She was elevated to mayor pro tem. She was promised, if you will, an easy re-election. Now, that's my opinion of the way things played out. I could be wrong. It has been anything but. They have spent a ton of money. They've been campaigning constantly to get her reelected. Now, I want to say from the onset, every time I've met the lady, she's been nothing but nice. I don't know her well. Other than a handshake and a hello, that's the extent of my knowledge. Everybody that I know that actually interacts with her speaks very highly of her, regardless of what side of the aisle that they're on. Everything I've ever seen from her, there's no crazy lefty weird stuff. She's a known Democrat. That's not always the worst thing in the world. Not always. But she doesn't come off like a leftist, lunatic, progressive socialist. Now, could she be? Maybe. Maybe she hides it real well. I don't know. That being said, she's got a pretty darn clean track record while she's been on McKinney City Council. So I would be in no hurry to replace her, but for the fact that we actually have a conservative Republican worker that wants to run. You got Tammy Warren. Now, I know she's got a lot of bad press. I know she's got some powerful enemies, if you will. Some of them I would say are the right enemies. Looking at you, Mr. Mayor. Clearly she is being judged on one of her offhanded remarks. I'm not sure that's fair. I don't think it's an accurate description. You know, I've heard worse from other elected officials. So I'm really hesitant to disregard or to dismiss. That being said, she's clearly a Republican. She's clearly conservative. Is everything perfect? No. The Republican Party of Collin County could have and should have endorsed her, but for the actions of 3 people. I would name them, but I don't want to start even more drama within the Collin County Republican Party. But suffice it to say, one is a disgruntled former candidate. The other one is a disgruntled whatever. And the third one has some issues. And that's just putting it mildly. And apparently resigned as a precinct chair. So these 3 individuals, not necessarily working in concert, well, 2 of the 3 were, let's put it that way, torpedoed successfully a vote that would have guaranteed the endorsement for Tammy Warren. I don't think she should deserve that. I think that was out of line. This is clearly a simple choice. You have a Republican running for an office who is conservative versus a Democrat running for the same office who's the incumbent. You don't have to hate the Democrat. I don't. You don't even necessarily have to love the Republican. But if partisan matters matter to you, this is a clear-cut choice. And the fact that a few people in the party torpedoed what should have been a simple endorsement makes the party look bad, especially when there are a number of significant elected officials that put their name on the dotted line saying that they would support and endorse Tammy Warren. She's earned that. She's done the work. She even served on a board for the city when the mayor clearly doesn't like her. He's clearly exaggerating things or warping them to make her look as bad as possible. One can only imagine that's because he's trying to protect Dr. Feltus, which, by the way, she's a very good person as far as I can tell. I don't hate her work on the city council, and that should stand on its own. But they're spending an enormous amount of money and effort to keep her on that city council. The question is why? Is it because they like her so much or they fear Tammy Warren? Which is it? Don't know. But I want you to consider that. You know, we've only got 2 days of voting left. Election day is on the 3rd. It's a long, long day. All right, last election. I'm going to try really hard not to shortchange this because I'm going to be running into my 30-minute mark here pretty quick. You got 2 guys running that I don't know. I don't dislike either one of them. I just don't know much about either one of them. Dr. Taha Ansari. I think I got that right this time. And then, boy, I'm going to butcher his name. I'm going to just Taber. I'm sorry. I apologize. Hang on a second. All right, so I did get it right. It is Dr. Taha Ansari. He's a psychiatrist. One would say he might want to consult one of his coworkers for jumping into this race. No disrespect to him. I have met the guy. Super smart guy. And then Derek Tarver. Boy, I did almost butcher his name, but it's Derek Tarver. I don't know where these guys are going to place. I don't want to disrespect them because they're doing a very hard thing. You're running for an at-large seat, which is the entire city. Dr. Ansari has put a good deal of his own money, as far as I could tell, into this race. Derek's probably in pretty deep to himself too. Respect to the guys. Don't know them. Don't. I can't recommend them just because I don't know them. Which then brings me to the other two in this mix. Ernest Lynch, Jim Garrison. Now, both of these guys have money. Both of these guys have been working. I will tell you, if you support the airport, if you love the McKinney Airport, if you want to spend oodles of taxpayer money on the McKinney Airport, either one of these guys are your guy. I mean, that's just the deal breaker there. Now, I've said from the get-go, I don't hate the airport. I've said from the get-go, I think that, it's going to be a net positive one, and if it's fully developed. But I've also said that we've put enough taxpayer money into it. We need to let private enterprise step in and do something. We need to quit, socializing the costs or the losses and privatizing the profits. When you're picking winners and losers like the city of McKinney has a habit of doing from time to time, that's not good for the people of the city. That being said, okay, fine. The airport's a special case. Great. Guess what? You got one guy running, Brian Magnuson, who I do know, who I've spent time with multiple times over the last 5 or 6 years, and I trust immensely. He also has a lifetime of service. He's also former military. He also works in the school district. He also raised a son and a daughter with his lovely wife. Guess what? He's the most even-keeled, level-headed guy I know. And he just wants what's best for the city of McKinney. He's open that, hey, you know what? Perhaps there's a way we can make this airport work. Perhaps there's a way that, we can find a better way to fund this or get private investment. So he doesn't hate the airport. He's just saying, no, perhaps we don't need to be throwing any more taxpayer money on it. Again, I know the guy personally. I support him. That's my endorsement. But I'll tell you, if you like the airport, you think the airport's the way to go, then I'll recommend Ernest Lynch. I mean, you can have it both ways, right? If you're pro-airport, I think Ernest Lynch is probably your best bet. And guess what? He's also supported by all the same people that support the anointed replacement for the mayor, as well as Dr. Dre Feltus. There's significant overlap there, and we're going to revisit that here in just a minute. So I don't immediately dismiss anybody that's been on city council or part of the McKinney team or part of the in-click or whatever. It's not about that. It's what do I think personally is best for the city of McKinney, and are they going to represent you, me, and I? Is that right? You got it, right? It was a joke. Are they going to represent all of us or just some of us? All right. That being said, I don't hate Jim Garrison. As a matter of fact, if you want somebody with some Trump attitude or some George attitude, if you prefer, Jim's probably your guy. I do not endorse. I do not recommend. But that being said, if I should run across him, as always, I will treat people with cordial response and be friendly to all. All right, so that kind of sort of wraps it up. But now I want to revisit one thing here. In the remaining minute and a half here, probably, I think that it's been fair to be criticized as a member of the Republican Party, particularly the Collin County Republican Party, that a good number of our people live in a silo. that we dwell in an echo chamber. We only listen to each other. We only hear what we want to hear. I think many times that's a fair assessment. Is it fully accurate? No. Is it applicable all the time? No. But it is a fair criticism because we need to admit these things. The flip side of this equation is I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say 30 to 50 people that are highly influential. Some of them are well off. Some of them are just well connected, that think that they know what's best for the city of McKinney. They think that they're the only ones that ought to determine the future of the city of McKinney. They are the ones that put together and promote the same cast of characters every few years. They're promoting and supporting the opponent for Chad Green. They're bringing back the former school board member and going to try and get him back on, Mr. Ussery. Again, don't know the guys, don't hate them, but pay attention, folks. And on the city council side, they dusted off the guy that managed to get the city sued the first time he was on city council. Whether or not that was actually his fault still hasn't been adjudicated in my mind, but that's something you ought to keep in mind. I think it's an appropriate thing to ask. They're behind the guy that used to be on the McKinney team when he was running the hospital. Now, that being said, he may be very highly qualified to run big things, but as we've seen, the city council really doesn't run anything. They have the city manager for that purpose. They're supposed to have a vision, an idea, and work together for what's best for the city of McKinney. I'm not convinced that the people that make up the McKinney team really think about that anymore. I'm not convinced that the clique, the council, if you will, not the city council, but those that feel like they know what's best for the city of McKinney actually worry about the city of McKinney anymore. I think they're more about protecting the status quo. I think they're more about protecting what's theirs. But the fact of the matter is, this is not the same McKinney of 10 years ago or 20 years ago. There is 250,000 people in the city of McKinney. We need to have alternative voices. We need to have additional voices. People need to be heard. Now, I got to say, I don't hate our current city council. I really don't. I am happy to see some people are retiring. I'm hopeful that as the natural turnover occurs, it'll continue to evolve and improve. And I have a lot of respect for several members of the city council. And I know that under new leadership, under new vision and direction, they're going to play an important part of taking McKinney to the next step forward. I've had an opportunity to speak to a couple of them on various occasions. I'm confident that even though they may be part of the same club that I'm not, they care about the city of McKinney. And they articulate it in such a way that it's believable. So when I see the pictures posted of the club that got together to come support the next chosen candidate, and it's really the majority of them are the same faces, I would caution those folks from casting stones at the way my Republican Party operates, because they operate in their own silo. They have their own echo chamber. Now, they might be the club and I ain't in it. And I want you to understand, I'm not bitter. I'm not jealous. I just accept that's the way the world works. What I'm suggesting is, rather than continuously fighting, rather than resorting to name calling and personal attacks, we ought to focus on the policies that we can agree on. We ought to focus on the future that we can envision for the city of McKinney. We ought to be thinking about what's best for all the people in the city, not just the select few that happen to have been here first or happen to have a little bit more power or influence than some of the other folks. And as I've said many, many times, I fully understand the city fathers exist and they're going to get theirs. And I'm made peace with that as long as the rest of the city benefits too. That being said, it should not be lost on you that every time they talk about well, you served on a city board, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. They're the ones that control the appointments to the boards. They're the ones that appoint the people to serve on commissions. And if you're not towing the line, if you're not doing what they say, if you're not hanging out with these people, you're never going to be appointed to that. It's as simple as that. We have to be able to allow people to be involved that don't carry the line. We have to allow people to be involved that have a different point of view. The people that are out of power often resort to this. Well, this isn't democracy. You're not representing us well. We need to be in there. And then when they get in there, they, quite frankly, burn it down. Nobody wants that. This is an act of self-preservation. This is an act of doing what's best for the city. If you hear people out, if you give them a seat at the table, if you treat them with respect and give them dignity, they're going to be far more likely to give you buy-in, to be involved, to be interested, to be vested in what's going on in the city. The days of dismissal and disgracing people and disrespecting people need to be over. I think we get that. I think we get that if we get Scott Sanford as mayor, we get Brian Magnuson in as a city council member, and that's going to be enough. If we also happen to get Tammy Warren in, or if we get Tammy Warren and don't get Brian Magnuson in, I think we get the same net outcome. We get a new mayor with a new vision, a new voice, and we get somebody else to, quite frankly, second the motion so you can actually have a discussion about what's for best. It is my sincere hope that the city of McKinney will get off its hindquarters and go out and vote. There's been dismal turnout. And if you're a Republican, if you claim to care one whit about what's been going on in D.C. or Austin, this is your opportunity right now. The very things that happen out our back doors in the city of McKinney, the city of Frisco, McKinney ISD, Frisco ISD, those are the things that are tangible, that are easy, low-hanging fruit for you to affect the outcome in. I've talked about this so many times in my podcast. Deal with the things that are closest to you. Get involved with the things that are directly affecting you on a day-by-day basis. And while we're at it, one last thing here. It burns me up, the projection that we get from some of these folks. They're worried about a pastor running for city council when the current, no, not necessarily the current council, but a former council had no problem shutting down churches. They had no problem forcing people to stay in their homes. They had no problem forcing people to cover their faces. They had no problem telling people how to behave and act. And today, right now, today, they have no problem restricting your freedom of speech under the guise of electioneering code. You can't have it both ways. Either you respect liberty and freedom or you don't. And I will tell you that Scott Sanford has a long track record of respecting those very things. I will tell you that Brian Magnuson has an even longer track record due to his service in the military, that he was there ready to die for you and your rights. So when I hear people running their mouths and they talk about this, that, and the other thing, that kind of rings hollow. Actions speak louder than words. And former city councils made it clear they didn't care about your right to go worship. They didn't care about your right to speak. They didn't care about your right to go take care of your family, work, and whatever else. They abused those rights. Now, I'm not suggesting we do anything rash, but we can vote them out of office. With that, I went way over time. I hope I made it worth your time, and I will see you on the other side.
Canceled by the big tech mafia, but inadvertently profiting from owning their stocks in a mutual fund or ETF. At Two Pillars, they believe that censorship is a form of violence and a business practice that does not promote human flourishing. In many cases, through their investigative screening process, they can help you divest from companies that are denying your God-given, inalienable right to speak freely. Hey, Patriots! Two Pillars believes it's time for conservatives to align their values and investments. Two Pillars is your place for impact investing in the parallel economy. Find out what's in your investment portfolio with a complimentary portfolio review. Contact them today to learn more. Call toll-free at 833-377-0051 or send an email to info@twopillarsam.com. That's info@twopillarsam.com. Get started today. Advisory services are offered through Jake and Boaz Asset Management, LLC, doing business as Two Pillars Asset Management or Two Pillars, a registered investment advisor in the states of Texas and California. Two Pillars is not endorsed by any government agency and is not engaged in the practice of law or tax advice.